A reading from Luke's Gospel, the 15th chapter. Starting with verse 1. All the tax collectors and sinners were gathering around Jesus to listen to him. The Pharisees and legal experts were grumbling, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Jesus told them this parable. A certain man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance." Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. When he used up his resources, a severe food shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him out into the fields to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill from what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food? But I'm starving to death. I will get up and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on as one of your hired hands.' So he got up and went to his father. While he was still a long way away, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then his son said, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Fetch the fattened calf and slaughter it. We must celebrate with feasting, because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field. Coming in from the field, he approached the house and heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what was going on. The servant replied, 'Your brother has arrived, and your father has slaughtered the fatted calf, because he has received his son back safe and sound.' Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in, but his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, 'Look, I've served you all these years, and I never disobeyed your instruction. Yet you've never given me as much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours returned, after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, you slaughtered the fatted calf for him.' Then his father said, 'Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, how we love Jesus when he's telling us this wonderful story about a father who never gives up on his ne'er-do-well son. The prodigal, we call him, which means a wasteful, squandering, a foolish spender. Here's a dad whose boy has basically wished him dead and asks for his share of the inheritance. Dad agrees, and the son goes off to see the world, to live out adventures, and the money just disappears before he knows it. He falls on hard times, and finally he tucks tail, and he goes back home. Well, we might expect at least an "I told you so" from the father. What Jesus tells us is that instead, the dad runs to meet his boy, embraces him, and welcomes him home with a celebration, the likes of which few had ever seen. Actually, as I mentioned with the kids, Luke writes that this is the third story in a series of stories that Jesus tells. First, he tells of a loving shepherd who's so concerned that one of his sheep gets lost that he has to go looking for it. And he won't rest until he finally finds it and it's safe back within the fold. And in the second story, Jesus tells of this woman who loses one of her 10 precious coins. and she turns the house upside down looking for it. We read these three parables knowing that surely Jesus is telling us that our God is like the shepherd, like that woman, like that father. Our God won't rest until each of us is safely home, until we are back where we belong, with the one to whom we belong. Thank you, Jesus, we think, for giving us this wonderful imagery of a loving, caring, grace-filled Father. But what if there's another message in this trilogy as well? Notice that Jesus doesn't stop when the lamb is safe, when the coin is found, when the boy has come home. After each of these three events, there's a party. There's a celebration. These aren't just quiet events that thrill the heart of the one who's lost something or someone dear. Instead, these are festive bashes. These family and friends and neighbors and other household members are called to come and join in. There's merriment. There are festivities. The lost has been found. Luke writes that in the crowd hearing these stories, there were Pharisees and scribes, people who were grumbling and were critical that Jesus was hanging out with and traveling around with and even sitting down with tax collectors and all manners of sinners and eating meals with them. How dare he, the good church folks say. Why on earth would he want to be keeping company with folks like that? They aren't nice. They aren't good like we are. They don't keep the laws. They don't live by the rules. They don't work hard enough at being acceptable to God. Why would anybody who loves God be accepting of those people? People like that. So I wonder if maybe that's the target audience that Jesus is addressing with these stories. After the three stories of the lost being found and the rejoicing one calling for a celebration, Jesus then tells of the one who was invited but wouldn't come, the elder brother, the good boy of the family. Surely he stood for someone in this parable that Jesus is using to teach us. I wonder, to whom is Jesus speaking? Who's he trying to reach? What point is he trying to make here? When Jesus speaks of God's amazing grace, seeking out the lost and welcoming us home, rejoicing and not chastising, we are eager to listen. We love to identify with this story. When Jesus speaks of those who want to limit God's grace, who want to be sure it's extended only to those who deserve it, well, then we big brother types grow uncomfortable because, frankly, Jesus has gone to heaven. We want to believe that we're not like those scribes and Pharisees. We don't put parameters around God's love. Surely we don't set qualifications and try to tell God who gets grace and who doesn't. If there's a story that good church folk like, it's the story of the prodigal son. And if there's a story that good church folk dislike, it's the story of the prodigal's brother. We think, what a raw deal he got. It isn't fair. Why should he be happy for his brother? I mean, he gets all the good and he didn't have to earn even a little bit of it. Somehow, somewhere along the way, we seem to have decided that grace is something people merit rather than a gift that we receive. I've told you many times one of my favorite theologians is Frederick Buechner, and he writes, a crucial eccentricity of the Christian faith is the assertion that people are saved by grace. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. Well, sure, we say, Jesus already did it. Our salvation is there on the cross. That's what Easter means. And yet somehow we want to be the ones who decide to whom and how that salvation gets applied. Yes, him. No, not her. Not yet, anyway. Absolutely not somebody like that. How could God possibly love those people? She's got no right. He hasn't earned a party. What we big brother types are so quick to forget is that none of us earn that party. The party comes because the Father is loving. The Father is generous. The Father is merciful. The Father celebrates the lost being found, the relationship being restored. The Father's not interested in what the Son has and hasn't done for him, has or hasn't done to him. The Father could be one who's keeping a ledger, a score-keeping kind of judge, but he's not. Jesus says God is like a Father who is gracious beyond belief. Notice that the big brother says some things that really reveal that his heart is not quite what the Father might like it to be either. You know, we really don't know what the spendthrift son had been doing in that far country, but apparently the elder son had been doing a lot of speculating about what that might be. Maybe he was even envious of what his little brother was doing. He complained that he left to wonder, was he slaving out of love, or was he instead hoping to get something in return for his hard work? And he refuses to celebrate the good in his brother's life. Perhaps he is the good boy in the story, but is he really good enough? Does he deserve a party any more than his brother does? When we begin to fool ourselves into thinking that we have earned God's blessings, we've gotten way off base. We may not be murderous people or people who spend all our daddy's money on wild women and whiskey, but we are sinners nonetheless. Maybe we rob people of their joy. Maybe we kill their spirits. Maybe we spend all our energies worrying about whether others are minding their P's and Q's, and we fail to see the gifts they have that they could share, that they are ready to bring. Maybe we've let the rules become a false idol, and we've begun to worship the letter of the law, completely missing the spirit of love and charity. Maybe thinking ourselves morally superior is just as sinful as wandering off and sinning boldly. I think perhaps the elder brother bothers us so much because if we're honest, many of us have to admit, there go I. I'm not a prodigal like the first brother, but I've certainly wasted my share. I've wasted the love God gave me that I was supposed to be sharing with someone else. I've squandered resources that I could have been using to care for God's children. I've withheld forgiveness that God has given to me. I've been a spendthrift with my time and energy, but not using it to do good, but instead worrying about how other people are walking around with specks in their eyes, analyzing their shortcomings, diagnosing their failures, all the while failing to see that beam in my own eye. God invites us to the party. And if we waste the evening fuming instead of celebrating, instead of spending time with the Father and the ones that He loves, we're the ones who miss out. Again, I quote Buechner, "The grace of God means something like this. Here is your life. You might never have been, but you are, because the party wouldn't have been complete without you. Here's the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. God says, I am with you. Nothing can ever separate us. It's for you. I created the universe. I love you. There's only one catch. Like any other gift, the gift of grace can be yours only if you'll reach out and take it. Maybe being able to reach out and take it is a gift as well. You know, we don't know if the elder brother ever decided to go inside or if he stayed outside pouting and fuming the rest of the night. We don't know what happened to his relationships with his father and his brother. We don't know if he ever came to realize that his father loved him simply because his father loved him. Not because of what he did or didn't do, but because his father was a loving man. You see, the father was also a prodigal, one who was willing to waste love, to lavish it, to spend it freely on whoever would receive it. Our Father loves us enough to have sent the Son while we were yet sinners. No, we may not be sinners like the younger son, but perhaps we need to do some soul searching, some self-examination, some straight thinking and straight shooting about ourselves this Lenten season. Is there something that I need to take to the cross this year? Is self-righteousness keeping me from fully embracing grace? Does my judgmental, critical attitude keep me from being in loving relationship with the ones that God has put into my life? God's planned a party, and each and every one of us are invited. In fact, the party's not complete without us. The party we call Easter, and we should get ready and be there at that party. Amen.